The ocean was supposed to be calm that morning, the kind of stillness that made fishermen believe the sea could feel mercy. But sometimes, tranquility is only the silence that comes before the break. And for a humble fisherman named Eliandro Reyes, the quiet dawn became the stage for a nightmare that would push him to the very edge of human endurance. Before the sun could fully rise over the horizon, his world was invaded by the distant roar of an engine, the kind that didn't belong anywhere near the peaceful fishing grounds he had called home since childhood. In a single breath, Eliandro realized the truth. Danger was coming fast, and he had nothing but an old boat, a frayed rope, and a single rusted knife to defend himself. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and real stories of courage, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Eliandro had always been a man of the sea. His father had taken him out on the water when he was barely tall enough to peek over the railing, teaching him how to read the waves like a language only the patient could understand. Life was never luxurious, but it was honest, and that mattered more to him than anything. He fished to feed his small family, his wife Marisol and their 7-year-old daughter Alina. Every morning, he whispered a quiet promise to the ocean, asking it to keep him safe so he could return home to them, even when the weather threatened otherwise. But the ocean doesn't decide everything. Sometimes, the greatest storms come from other men. For weeks, Eliandro had heard rumors that pirates had been drifting closer to the coastal villages. Desperate men from a distant region, armed and reckless, looking for boats to loot and fishermen too poor to defend themselves. Most of the villagers believed they would never reach their side of the water. They trusted the distance, the currents, or simple luck. But pirates didn't care about boundaries, and they didn't wait for permission. That morning, as the silhouette of a dark, fast-moving vessel appeared on the horizon, Eliandro's heart struck his chest like a warning bell. Instinct told him to flee, but with his old motor that coughed and sputtered, he wouldn't outrun anyone. He was caught in the crossfire of fate. The pirate boat split through the water, closing the distance with speed that felt monstrous. Eliandro's hands trembled as he gripped the worn wooden sides of his boat, knowing he had nowhere to hide. He had survived storms, accidents, and years of poverty, but this was the first time he faced something that felt so deliberate, so targeted. When the pirates drew close enough for him to see their faces, hard, hungry, eyes sharp with desperation, he felt the air around him change. The sea no longer felt like an ally. It was a witness. They boarded without hesitation. His boat rocked violently beneath their weight, the deck groaning as if protesting the intrusion. The men shouted demands in a language he didn't fully understand, but their intentions were clear. They wanted the fish, the equipment, the engine, anything they could take. Eliandro tried to keep calm, remembering he had a family that needed him alive, not heroic. He reached into his storage crates, handing over the small haul he had caught earlier. But the pirates weren't satisfied. One of them spotted a chain he wore around his neck, an heirloom from his father, more sentimental than valuable, and reached for it. Eliandro's breath caught. He pleaded with his eyes, shaking his head, trying to explain that it wasn't worth anything. But desperation makes thieves cruel. When the pirate ripped the chain from his neck, something inside Eliandro broke. His father had given it to him on the day his boat was first launched, telling him it would protect him when the waves grew merciless. Losing it felt like losing the final piece of the man who had taught him everything. Instantly, the sting of loss turned into a surge of something primal, something he had buried beneath years of quiet endurance. He felt his heartbeat shift into a rhythm he didn't recognize. The pirates started tearing through his supplies, stepping on the nets he had mended by hand, tossing equipment overboard, as if his life's work meant nothing. When one of them reached for the small carved wooden figure he kept tucked under his seat, a gift from Alina, meant to bring him luck. Eliandro couldn't stand still any longer. His hand moved toward the small knife he kept in the side pocket of his boat, the same knife he used to cut ropes, gut fish, and mend sails. It wasn't a weapon, not really. It was old, chipped, and dull in places. But in his shaking hand, it became the only thing tethering him between defeat and the last shred of dignity he had left. He didn't plan to fight them. Not at first. He only wanted them to stop destroying the pieces of his life he couldn't replace. But one of the pirates lunged for him, mistaking his protective stance as defiance. Instinct reacted faster than thought. Eliandro dodged the swing of a metal rod and slashed out with the knife, surprising himself more than the attacker. The blade barely left a mark, but the pirate recoiled in shock, stumbling backward. The others turned toward him with fury burning in their eyes. What followed was not a battle in the heroic sense. It was messy, chaotic, driven by fear and the desperate pulse of survival. Eliandro ducked and dodged, using the tight space of his little boat to his advantage. The pirates were bigger, stronger, armed. But they were unprepared for a man defending his last pieces of hope. He jabbed outward with the knife, not to kill, but to fend off, to keep space between him and their blows. One misstep would send him overboard into the merciless water. One mistake could end everything. The struggle felt endless, each second stretching into a full minute as the boat rocked dangerously. He used the fishing crates as shields, the mast as cover, the narrow aisles to force the attackers into single file. It wasn't skill that kept him alive. It was survival, pure and unfiltered. He felt every hit, every bruise, every burn of salt water in his wounds. But he also felt something awaken inside him, a determination rooted not in anger, but in love. Love for his wife waiting at home with warm meals and worried eyes. Love for his daughter who believed her father was brave. Love for the quiet life he had built with so much effort. Eventually, the chaos reached a breaking point. One of the pirates slipped on a coil of wet rope and fell hard against the railing, knocking another man off balance. In the confusion, two of them tumbled into the water, their boat drifting slightly off course as their attention shifted. Eliandro seized the moment, slashing through the rope connecting the boats, and pushing off with every ounce of strength he had left. His small vessel drifted backward as the pirates scrambled to regain control, shouting angrily as the waves pulled them apart. One of them tried to leap back toward him, but the timing was off, and he splashed helplessly into the sea. Panting, shaking uncontrollably, Eliandro steered his boat away, praying the engine wouldn't stall at the worst possible time. It sputtered, coughed, then caught just enough momentum to carry him toward the distant outline of the shore. Behind him, the pirates battled the waves and their own disarray. Ahead of him, the horizon stretched like a narrow thread of hope. When he finally reached land, he collapsed on the sand long before he reached the village. His boat was battered, missing nets and supplies, and he himself was bruised, cut, and exhausted. But he was alive, and the little carving from his daughter, miraculously untouched, was still tucked in his pocket like a silent blessing. Villagers rushed to him, lifting him with gentle hands,
their voices filled with shock and fear as they learned what had happened. Word spread quickly. Eliandro had fought off pirates with nothing but a knife. To some it sounded legendary. To others it was heroic. But to him, it simply felt necessary. He wasn't trying to be a hero, he was just trying to protect the fragile pieces of his world. For days after, his body healed slowly, but his emotions took longer. He replayed the moment the chain was ripped from his neck 1,000 times. He remembered the fear in his chest when the pirates reached for his daughter's gift. But he also remembered the moment he realized he had something worth fighting for, something bigger than fear itself. The ocean became different in his eyes, not an enemy, not a friend, but a reflection of life, unpredictable, harsh, breathtaking, and precious. News of his survival spread beyond his village, inspiring people who had never met him. Fishermen from nearby towns began organizing patrols to watch over one another. Families shared stories of courage and resilience, and Eliandro, he returned to the sea with a new chain crafted by Marisol's own hands, a symbol not of protection, but of rebirth. In the quiet mornings that followed, he found himself staring at the horizon differently. He didn't fear the silence anymore. He didn't dread the roar of an engine. He knew life would always carry risks, but he also knew he had already faced one of the worst storms a man could endure. And he survived, not because he was armed, but because he held on to things that couldn't be stolen: hope, courage, love. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the strength ordinary people carry within them, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us bring more real, emotional stories to life. Before we end, tell us in the comments what would you fight for, even with nothing but your bare hands. And so, Eliandro Reyes, the fisherman who fought off pirates with just a knife, became a symbol of the human spirit's power to rise, even when cornered, even when overwhelmed, even when caught in the crossfire of fate. His story reminds us that true courage is rarely loud. Often it is quiet, trembling, and fueled not by strength but by love.